Welcome back to another edition of Through the Smoke, a Miami Hurricanes football and recruiting podcast here on the 24/7 Sports Network. David Lake, joined as always by Gabby Urrutia. It's Florida State week, and we are here to preview this big game, massive game. I'm looking forward to this one. It's been a while since Miami's had some stakes. Uh, this game in general has had some stakes. Uh, Miami Florida State rivalry. First ranked matchup since 2016. So it's crazy. It's been that long. We'll get into it here. Of course, before we start, want to highlight two of our sponsors. Number one, Canes Connection. That's Miami's collective. Uh, they play a crucial role in the NIL space, assisting the program in talent acquisition. And, I think particularly on the line of scrimmage, which is where you win and lose games, you'll see a difference between the Miami program and the Florida State program. And that is a reflection of the impact Canes Connection has had assisting Miami in their recruiting efforts. So go to canesconnection.com, sign up at whatever membership tier best suits you, and help this program on that grassroots type of level. Number two, of course, want to highlight our guy, Nick Musarino at Musarino Law. If you've been injured in a slip and fall accident, boating accident, trucking accident, car accident, Uber, Lyft accident, Nick Musarino is the personal injury attorney you should contact at 561 960 9870 or visit his website at flinjury.law. Nick is a massive Miami Hurricanes fan, and I know he's going to be dialed for this game on Saturday night. So let's get into it. FSU preview podcast here. Number 3, Miami, going to Tallahassee, facing number 18, Florida State. It's Miami's first road game of the season, of course. 7:30 p.m. kickoff time. This is the third primetime matchup for the Hurricanes this season. They've had some legitimate opponents here in their first 5 games of the season. Of course, Notre Dame, Florida, Florida State being those prime time matchups, and a ranked USF team being thrown in there as well. Let's go through the typical talking points like we normally do here, Gabby. Let's start with injury talk. The injury report. So this is an ACC game, and both teams are required to release some sort of formal injury report. It kind of reflects what we see at the NFL level, right? Probable, questionable. I don't even know if they do doubtful, but maybe they do. And then out, they'll tell you who's out for the game. I believe that comes out. This is the first ACC game for Miami, so I think that comes out here on Thursday night. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon. But to our best understanding, running back Jordan Lyle is gonna be a go. I think technically it was probably a go against Florida, but and I said this going into that game, like if you don't have to use them, don't use them. And I think that's the approach they took. They didn't really need him against Florida, and now he is fully 100% healthy going into this Florida State game. How much will he be used against Florida State? I think is an interesting conversation. Remember, Lyle Jordan was the starting running back against Notre Dame, so he's certainly an important part of this offense going forward. Do you want to just thrust him back into that starting role here against Florida State? To me personally, I'd rather lean heavily more so on Mark Fletcher and Marty Brown, and then sprinkle in a little bit of Jordan Lyle. And then as the ACC schedule progresses, you get Jordan Lyle more and more reps. That's just me talking, though. Wide receiver, JoJo Trader is good to go as well. Again, to me, I think he's a guy you ease into things. Against Notre Dame, he played maybe 10 snaps. To me, that's a good snap count this week for JoJo, 10 to 15 snaps. Now, within that snap count, if he starts making a ton of plays, then play him more, feed him more, ride that hot hand. But, I think we've learned to this point in the first month of the season, Miami doesn't necessarily need to rely on him to win this type of game. And so I think you got to play the long game with JoJo Trader, and you need him to be a big play threat as the season progresses. And so working him into the ACC games remaining to me is a bigger key, getting him ready for potentially a nice postseason run. On the Florida State side of things, it sounds like they're going to get back Roydell Williams, who's one of their rotational running backs. They're going to go get back true freshman slot receiver Javon Boggs. He was a guy who was generating a lot of buzz during fall camp, so he's a guy to keep an eye on. They get back, they're expected to get back defensive tackle Kevin Wynn, who is kind of a true nose tackle, big body, going to help eat snaps in stopping the run. How much is he going to play? We'll find out. This is his first game of the season, but he is a body to eat snaps. And then one guy to monitor, Ashlyn Barker. Sounds like he's questionable. He's kind of a bigger bodied safety, 6'3, 6'4, 215, 220-pound physical safety. Against Virginia, he showed the ability to blitz and make plays as a pass rusher. He totaled both of their sacks in that game. And I know, like, from a Miami standpoint, his availability is an important question that they want answered. And we'll find out, right? I think questionable. It's a shoulder. So shoulders are kind of unpredictable and hard to project. Miami holds the all-time edge between the two programs in this series right now, 36-33. Miami won last year's matchup 36-14 in Hard Rock Stadium. FSU won the last matchup in Doak Campbell Stadium, back in 2023. That was a 27-20 game. Again, this is the first ranked matchup between the two schools since 2016. FSU won that game 20-19. It was the block at the Rock. That game featured number 10 Miami against number 23 Florida State. That was Mark Richt's first season at Miami. One interesting stat, Gabby, since 2000, so this millennium, the series is currently tied at 13 apiece, 13-13. So this series goes back and forth. It does go in runs typically, but it is a very evenly matched series, and typically the games are highly competitive. FSU this season, they are 3-1. They earned an impressive season opening victory against Alabama, 31-17 at Doak Campbell Stadium. Then had smooth victories against East Texas and Kent State. Then last Friday lost at Virginia, FSU's first road game, in double overtime, 46-33. Their head coach, of course, is Mike Norvell. He is 36-28 at Florida State right now. He's 20-21 in ACC play. This is year 6 for Mike Norvell. He's no longer handling the play calling duties. He has now had 3 seasons at FSU that are sub 500. Handling the play calling duty now is his mentor, Gus Malzahn. This is his first season as a true offensive coordinator, play caller, not a head coach play caller, since 2011. And frankly, he's been cooking this year. He's done a good job of getting the most out of their personnel. He runs kind of a modern variation of like a triple option type of offense. They put defenses in constant conflict with, running quarterbacks and working the ball horizontally as well, with plenty of speedy skill players. Runs an up-tempo type of offense as well. A lot of snaps per game when they get rolling. Defensive coordinator is Tony White. This is his first year in that role at FSU. He played linebacker at UCLA as a player, came up as a cornerbacks coach at San Diego State and Arizona State. He got his breakthrough chance as a defensive coordinator at Arizona State in 2019. He was then DC at Syracuse and Nebraska before coming to Florida State this year. He runs a lot of kind of a 3-3-5 type of defense. They mix in some 4 down as well. Lots of zone coverages as well. Statistical profiles of these teams, Gabby. FSU has an offense. We'll start there. FSU has totally flipped what they are on offense year over year in an impressive manner, going from arguably the worst Power 4 offense in the country last year to this year one of the best, and right now going into this game, statistically the best offense in the country. They're averaging 53 points per game, 600 yards per game. That's both tops in the country. 336 rushing yards per game. That's second in the country. Their pass efficiency number ranks third in the country. They are averaging 7.4 yards per play against FBS opponents, which is number 4 in the country. That, of course, indicates explosiveness. They are converting 59% on third down, which ranks 6. They've generated 30 plays that have gone for at least 20 yards this year. Just to put that in context, last season, they generated 38 of those type of gains in 12 games. They are at 82.6% red zone touchdown rate, which ranks 10th in the country. Uh, on the offensive line, 4 tackles for loss allowed, 1 sack per game allowed. Those both rank 25th nationally. They've lost 6 turnovers on the year, which is 76 nationally. ESPN's S&P Plus, which is, a good advanced analytic, they rank FSU's offense 24th in the country, which I think is probably a fair ranking just to the eye test. I think in a lot of ways, some of their stats are, they're a good offense, and we'll get into it here, but some of their stats are inflated because of the 2 games that they played against Kent State and East Texas A&M. In general, they have, a personnel group that is difficult to stop on the ground, an athletic quarterback, lots of fast skill players, a coordinator that dials up jet sweeps, reverses, end arounds, horizontal passes to try and keep a defense a step slow. They also attack downfield off those looks, so they are a good offense. Defensively, 19 points per game, that's 42nd. 296 yards per game, that's 28th. 111 rushing yards per game allowed, that's 34th. 6.5 tackles for loss per game, that's 33rd. 33.9% allowed on third down, that's 42nd. Florida State is not very good in red zone on defense. They allow a 70% red zone touchdown rate. That's like in the hundreds. They have forced 6 turnovers, which ranks 49th in the country. ESPN's S&P Plus has them as a defense that ranks 28th in the country, which I think is fair-ish. Like, to my eyes, though, they're kind of more in that like 40 range. But defensively, just in general, they seem like a team that doesn't have much like game-changing impact talent. So they play kind of a bend but don't break style. Not a group that you worry about like imposing its will in any particular way. And I think that shows up like in the red zone where they can kind of get bullied a little bit into allowing touchdowns on special teams. Their kicker is Jake Weinberg, has a massive leg. He's 3 of 4 on field goals this year, but he did miss a critical field goal attempt late in the game against Virginia. That was like in the 40-yard range or so. Punter Mac Chimunto, I'm sorry, don't know how to say the name, is averaging 41.5 yards per attempt on only 4 punts. Again, that offense is getting it done, so only 4 punts. They also go for it quite a bit on 4th down. Jalen Lucas and Sam Singleton handle the kick return duties. Jalen Lucas and Squirrel White are the punt returners. Overall, nothing overly impressive from FSU on special teams to this point. All right, let's dive into the personnel, Gabby. I'll bring you in here. And of course, let's start with offense. Let's start with quarterback Tommy Castellanos, who's one of the more unique players that Miami will see this year, one of the more dynamic players Miami will see this year. What stands out about him when you watch Florida State this year?
Yeah, what stands out to me about Tommy Castellanos is just to me it's just like the electricity he brings to the field, just the quick twitch, his ability to kind of move the pocket, his ability to extend plays, deliver on some deep shots. He's the type of quarterback that I think again just within this college scheme, within this Gus Malzahn offense, is just a really excellent fit for what they want to do. To me, he's just kind of difficult to contain because he can evade pressure. He can also push it. Again, I don't think he's not a world beater as like a drop back passer. I don't think that's the situations that FSU desires to put him in. But to me, from a college quarterback standpoint, he's just a lot of fun to watch. He's a guy that definitely plays with a chip on his shoulder, has an edge, and I think just is a big reason why this offense has kind of ignited year over year, why they're able to be efficient, why they're especially running the ball so well, why Deuce Robinson I think has become kind of like a big play receiver on the outside because I think teams are kind of focused on everything else FSU does. He's a good weapon because you always have to know what he's doing with the ball in his hands and where it's going. And with the horizontal eye candy, you get a lot from this Gus Malzahn offense. Tommy Castellanos is like the catalyst behind it because you have to just always consider that he's gonna keep it and move and just do big things with the football in his hands. And again, he has to make you miss type of ability where it's tough to kind of get him down. It could be tough to contain him and get your hands on him and get him to the ground just because he's so quick and he just moves around. So he's a fun college quarterback, and he's been a huge reason why FSU's been successful so far this season.
Yeah, two things stand out about him when you look at some of the stats. Number one, his average time to throw is over 3 seconds long, which is a long time, right? Part of that is because he is athletic and can buy time when pressure comes. But when pressure does come, he's very good at evading those pressures and avoiding sacks. His pressure to sack rate on the year, I believe, is like 7%. And he's like the only quarterback in the country right now with pressure to sack rate under 10% that also has held the ball and an average time to throw of longer than 3 seconds. So 3 seconds. So um, he puts a lot of pressure on secondaries to hold up on their coverages, puts you in constant conflict. He's a good quarterback, especially for this system. The more I watched him, Gabby, like I'm not going to sit here and say he's like a crazy impressive thrower, but he's probably a better passer this year. I think that's fair. Okay. It's fair to say I think he's an improved passer this year compared to what we saw at Boston College. I think part of that is because this offense has been tailored perfectly to his skill set. They don't really ask him to throw it that much. Um, I'm curious, just the more you watched him, what did you think of him specifically as a passer?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, he has his moments where he just delivers really good balls. You see the end of that Virginia game, that ball he throws to Deuce Robinson that, kind of bobbles it. Like that's a really good throw. The throw he makes to Randy Pittman, I think that's right before regulation. That's an absolute dart. There's times where, it doesn't look super pretty, but I think when he has to, I think there are times where you see that he is a capable passer. I think especially when it's kind of, pushing it downfield, doing things, just out of the pocket and having to move around a little bit. Again, the way he extends plays. And yeah, I don't think he's the best passer in the country by any means, but I think that when he does when he needs to kind of deliver it, he's kind of able to get it. And then there's times where you see him just kind of shortchange it, where he's just almost like skipping it, or just, leaving things short. So you're going to see kind of like the hiccups, but I think like his good throws are really, really good. And, again, he has some of those impressive flashes as a passer.
Let's go to the ball carriers, the running backs, or even some receivers that carry the ball as well. Take this wherever you want to take this, Gabby. Who do you want to highlight first here amongst the running back group?
Yeah, for me, I don't think that this is their leading rusher, but I feel like the most impressive running back that they have to this point of the season is true freshman Usman Kroma. Like to me, he's
Agreed.
he's been to me when the ball's in his hands, it just looks different. The way that he's able to kind of push it, the way he's able to kind of just like the yards after catch, just kind of fall forward. He's a big bodied. You can tell that he's a very, very talented player. To me, of just like if I'm talking pure talent, just ball carrier wise, I know Gavin Sawchuk, the Oklahoma transfer, has gotten a majority of the reps. I know they'll get Roydell Williams back and they mix in some of these other guys. But to me, their horse is Usman Kroma. I think if I was FSU, that's a guy that I would lean on mostly. Of course, you got the Gavin Sawchuk. Of course, Tommy Castellanos does plenty with his legs too. And a lot of other they do a lot of other creative things to get guys like Makai Danzy the ball in space. But to me, if it's just talking about like the pure natural running game, Usman Kroma is the one
Yeah.
I'm probably the most concerned about.
There's three guys from a Miami perspective you're worried about carrying the ball. Tommy Castellanos, quarterback. At wide receiver, Makai Danzy on those jet sweeps or reverses. He has been a big play machine in that role. And then at running back, it's Chroma. Like if I'm Miami, I want Florida State to feed Sawchuk and
Yeah,
Roy Dale Williams. Like, please play these guys and keep slowly working Chroma into the equation as
yeah,
a true freshman. But when you watch Chroma, it is different.
yeah.
He is the guy that knocks back defenders upon contact. He runs angry is probably the best way to say it. And he's going to be a pro. Like he's a future NFL running back. And so, you know, Gavin Sawchuk, Roy Dell Williams, like those are veteran guys, but talent wise, it's not really close.
I'm with you.
Sawchuk, Williams, Lucas, anything noticeable with them? Like Lucas is an intriguing player, like kind of
Yeah.
similar from like a Danzy standpoint of like gadget guy.
Yep.
Um, like get those guys to the edges and
Right.
setting the edge is going to be a big key against those guys.
Yeah, like Jalen Lucas, he's a guy that again they kind of do some of this like eye candy stuff. He ends up on a wheel route. I think it was against Virginia where he ends up on like on a little wheel route and they hit him for a huge explosive play in the passing game. So he's a guy that you always have to kind of take account for because they move these guys around and they
I
do different
think,
and they kind of was that against Alabama?
well, I think if I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong. Last year, Lucas was a receiver and Danzy was a running back for
Yeah,
them. And I think they've
maybe.
kind of flipped them. So it's
I
just
know
they're,
Danzy was originally like I think he was listed as a running back when he was coming out, and then I know he
yeah,
transitioned to receiver, but he still does. He's still a very active player in
they're
their running game.
versatile. Right.
Right,
Like Lucas is a running back that you can go throw
right.
passes to.
Yeah,
And Danzy is a receiver that is really like a jet sweep
yeah.
monster.
Yeah, and I feel like with Danzy, even as a receiver, like I feel like you still see like kind of like the rawness there. Like to me, he's not the most
Yeah.
like polished. He's made some incredible catches. Like he also like he had that amazing. Was
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
Kent State that like that was super big time? But then
Yes.
he's also had times where it's just like kind of just like come back drop.
Drops.
Off
Yeah.
yeah the drops and all that stuff. So he's still kind of putting it together. But he's what an ACC
Fast. Yeah.
400-meter champion, like potential
Right.
Olympic type of speed, and that shows on the field. Like I feel like sometimes that doesn't, it sometimes doesn't translate for like the really really fast guys. But I feel like with Danzy, the way that they utilize him in space and create opportunities for him to get space, that touchdown that he scores against Alabama, it's so impressive, and the way
Yes.
that he moves on the field. So he's a weapon for sure, and they've done a really good job of carving out a role that allows them to utilize his superpower, which is that elite speed, and so he can be problematic for sure.
How about their tight end Randy Pittman? Because
Yeah.
like statistical profile, like if you just look at the stats on the season, and even from the Virginia game, which he had a tremendous impact on
Hmm.
that game. His stats don't necessarily stand out to you, but he is an impressive player. And against Virginia, what he scored three
Three
touchdowns
ways.
in
Yeah,
different ways. Go
yeah,
into that.
he ran for a touchdown on a short yardage, like I think it was like a direct snap.
Wildcatish.
Yeah, Wildcat touchdown. He threw a touchdown on another direct snap that he did like a jump pass to, I believe it was Deuce Robinson, and then he scored that touchdown where he made an excellent catch,
Yes.
and it was an excellent throw from Tommy Castellanos. So he's versatile for sure. I mean, 6'2", 237. So he's a bigger guy that they do a lot of different things with. He blocks for them really well. Like I think what he does for them and helping them kind of establish the run game, I think is it kind of goes underrated. They kind of line him up as like sort of like an H back at times. They have two, between Pittman and the Douglas 87, they have two big body tight ends that are, again, is he like the best route runner, pass catcher? Like, he's a good like short to intermediate guy in that way, but I think he brings some physicality. He's a guy that comes over from UCF, so very familiar with Gus Malzahn's scheme and system. And to me, he's a fun player for them. Again, not going to wow you on the stat sheet, but he does a lot of different things and wears a lot of different hats in this offense. And I think he's a key part of what they do on that side of the ball.
He's probably like, do you think this is fair? Like he's there, Elijah
Right.
Lofton,
Yeah.
like a good football player
Right.
that you can count on and
Definitely.
does the little things that maybe don't show up on
Right.
a stat sheet.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Their offensive line, they are four new starters, transfers. So last year's offensive line group was their issue on offense. It was a bad offensive line full of players with body types that don't belong at Florida State. They brought in four transfers. Now they look the part, and that group is playing much better year over year. What are your thoughts on their offensive line?
Yeah, definitely a big group of guys. Bring in Gunnar Hansen from Vanderbilt playing left tackle, Mike Pettis on the right side, transfer from Ole Miss, bring in a UCF transfer, and the Wake Forest transfer, Luke Pettibon at center. Again, it looks totally different year over year as far as just what it was last year, which was pretty disastrous. Again, I think this is to me still sort of a up and down type of offensive
Yeah,
line.
it's
Like I think,
above average,
right,
but
like to
it's
me.
improved.
Definitely improved, for sure improved. I think there's like there was no way to not improve after what they did last year. But look, I still think that this is an area where I think Miami has a pretty significant advantage. I think, if we're comparing him to Notre Dame and Florida, right? And even I guess USF, yeah, I would say that this is probably the third best of that group as far as just like the Power Four opponents that Miami's played so far. And we saw how uh, you know, quite dominant Miami was along the line of
Right.
scrimmage against those two better offensive lines. So definitely a key area to watch in this game, and I think Miami's going to test that Florida State offensive line in a way that I honestly don't even think Alabama tested them in that way, and that's kind of crazy to
Um,
say. But I think that this Miami defensive line is a very unique challenge for what these guys have seen so far.
Agreed. The one difference, and we'll get into this, but the one difference is Castellanos has the type of athleticism that can make you not notice issues on the offensive line, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He can erase potential negative plays and pressures, etc. Let's flip it to the defense and let's start up front. I want to talk about their edge guys first, Gabby. Um, you know, we've watched more of Florida State since our podcast we recorded earlier in the week. Um, let's start with defensive end. What stands out about this defensive end group, good or bad, when you've watched them, more this week?
Yeah, to me, I think it's just a unit that, again, I just think they really just lack some pass rushing juice, as far as just disrupting the quarterbacks. I think even just in run defense, I think that I think those edge rushers can be suspect. James Williams was kind of like their prize transfer from Nebraska, who came over from with Tony White. I think I don't know if he's been quite up to the standard that they hoped that he would be when he came in. Again, hasn't really impacted the quarterback in obvious passing situations. Has looked extremely suspect in run defense. To me, this defensive line, again, if we're comparing the three that they've played, I think this is also the
Yes.
third best defensive line that they've played in comparison to Notre Dame and Florida. So, um, just really those pass rushers to me, it's just about the way that they can't really
They
impact the
don't rush the
quarterback.
passer.
Yeah.
Like they don't have
And even
a
like
pass rusher.
right, and even when they kind of bring more guys to help, like Ashlyn Barker again, it seems to be like their
Yeah.
playmaker in the blitz game is like their safety, and you're obviously you're susceptible to other things when you are bringing in, safety to kind of to help out, and then he's questionable. And how injured is he? Like how close is he? How healthy is he in this game? I don't know. To me, it's not the best defensive end unit. I think they have a lot of questions that they
To
need to kind of
me,
figure out.
James Williams is kind of like a net negative player, if that make like his run
His
defense.
plus minus would be negative.
Yeah, his run defense to me kind of makes him unplayable, quite frankly, and he's not making up for that with pass rushing, playmaking. Um, to me, he's a guy that you got to cut snaps on, but we'll see if they do
Yeah.
that.
But the thing is, what's their answer behind it? Like that's
Right.
where I'm at with them. It's just like,
Maybe Amari Williams. I mean, there seems to be a lot of
yeah,
talk about,
but he's the guy that's like he's been kind of going again. He's a good. I'm on record loving Amari Williams, especially as a high school prospect. But he's spent a lot of his time at tight end too. Like I feel like
right.
defensive end's not one of those positions where you can just be like, all right, man. Like I know you've been playing tight end all this time. Like get your hand to the ground and start rushing the passer. Like I don't think it's that quick of a fix. I think he's a very talented player, but I think that's if you're going to ask a guy like Amari Will, like if that's the answer, if that's the alternative, like to me that's a tough situation for FSU to be, not just for Miami, just I'm talking just like long term, just roster building and
Yeah.
construction.
This season.
Yeah,
It's
it
an
doesn't
issue.
seem like, and I think one of the transfers they brought in is out. One of those. It's
Diggs,
Diggs.
yeah,
And again, what is that? I just don't know where I
they
don't
don't
know
have
where the answer.
answers.
Yeah,
They don't.
exactly. So it's like if it's not James Williams, it's like who is it? Is it one of the Desir twins? And that's like you're putting a true freshman in a tough spot against, uh, you know, get a big time offensive line. Like to me, I don't think. Again, we'll get into this, but I
If
think
I see James Williams on the field, I'm running right at him.
yeah,
He's that much of a liability.
yeah,
D tackle Daryl Jackson.
yeah,
To me, Gabby, like of course he's the former Hurricane. He was here for one season. Um, after watching more and more, I thought he was very good against Virginia. Um, Rushed the passer well, did a nice job of just eating blocks. There was some plays where like Virginia, no joke, has three guys
yeah.
trying to block Daryl Jackson. So he did well against Virginia. He's the one guy that again, like as a pass rusher, is he going to necessarily impact the game? No, but he's going to clog up the inside run game, and he is legitimately a a good player. Which
Yeah.
I don't know how many of those they actually have on defense. To my eye, like I'm not overly impressed with their defensive personnel, but Daryl Jackson does catch your attention.
Yeah, to me, if there was like an NFL guy on that defense, it's probably
Yeah,
him, and someone's gonna take a chance on him because he's so freakishly big and long. And again, yeah, that they had to require. It's funny how they could just dedicate so many numbers to him, and they could still be like Virginia was still successful. It wasn't like because they, put all everything towards containing Daryl Jackson, like it opened up stuff. Like it's just like Virginia still ran for like 250 on them. So again, Daryl Jackson is a really good player, and he is, he can be problematic. I don't think Miami's going to dedicate three guys to him.
no,
Maybe they are. I don't know, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how he impacts the game. And you got guys like Daniel Lyons too, who's an older player that's from down here in Homestead. Was I think probably one of two actual like head-to-head recruiting wins that Florida State has over Miami, and Mario Cristobal wasn't even here to recruit him. But he's an older guy that plays on that defensive line. And then, again, got the Desir twins. Like the Mandrell Desir has been playing, honestly, some pretty good football within the context that he's a first year
good freshman.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good freshman defensive lineman. And yeah, to me, otherwise, I don't know, man. That defensive line to me is outside of Daryl Jackson is pretty unimpressive.
Do you have much exposure to Kevin Wynn?
I don't. What do
Yeah.
you think? I know he's a
I
big
I mean,
body. I
yeah,
don't
I
really
don't
know
know
much about
much.
him as a
Yeah.
recruit. I know he was like a top 50 guy. Is he expected back? Like I haven't really seen
Yeah.
much from him. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, we'll
In
see
a
what
limited
was.
role, I would assume. But
Yeah, we'll see
yeah.
what he brings as he's a true freshman? Is he a
Yeah.
redshirt freshman? Okay, so I mean, again, I just think that's tough. I think all over the country you're seeing it's tough to be a first year line of scrimmage player.
So
But yeah, that's another body they'll have in the rotation.
so you're right. Like Virginia dedicated a lot of um players to deal with Daryl Jackson up front, which in theory should mean your linebackers eat.
Right.
The reason why Virginia had such a great game, or had no issues really with FSU's defense, was because the linebacker play was so poor. What did you see from that group?
Yeah, not good. Not good linebacker play. I don't know. I just again those linebackers just don't really do it for me. 31 was that the Memphis transfer?
Herring,
Yeah, Elijah
yeah,
Herring. To me, just I don't know.
he
Doesn't really.
struggled. It was a bad like
Yeah.
run and coverage,
And
bad,
Juice Crier again doesn't really do it for me
limited
either.
athletically.
Yeah, just I think those are two pretty weak points as far as just again, you want to go win a want to go win a conference, you want to go, I don't know,
Yeah,
to me those guys aren't physical enough. I don't think they're good enough athletes, and you got to make up for it with like
they also
playing
seem
hard.
confused. Like they don't
Yeah,
seem to
those players they're
understand
like they're
assignments.
like running into like their own defensive tackles. Like it was pretty ugly linebacker play as far as that goes. Again, in this Virginia game.
How about the secondary? Like to me, it's probably the strength of their defense, but is it to that FSU standard? I would still argue no. But who catches your eye in the secondary?
I mean, Earl Little plays with a chip on his
He plays
shoulder. Like
hard.
he plays
Yeah,
really really hard. He also struggles to finish
tackle.
tackles. He kind of just does he kind of runs to the ball hard, right? And like
Yeah,
he makes hard contact, but at this level that doesn't work if you're not going to go and finish. So again, I think when you play with that level of intensity, that's a good thing because that's kind of like
yeah,
an effort thing, and I expect that that will be better against in a game like against Miami. And you saw against Alabama, he was kind of like in that Alabama game, he was kind of like the tone setter on the defensive side of the ball.
yeah.
Like I thought that he was
He's a
like
good player.
he was sort of like the enforcer. He was really good in the run game. I think he's a little suspect when it comes to just like pass defense and all that stuff, but he's willing to kind of just roll downhill and hit. It's a matter of if you're going to wrap up and make these plays. He's gonna have to make plays on some big ball carriers. Mark Fletcher is a big dude. He knows him well. They went to high school together at Plantation American Heritage, so plenty familiar with Mark Fletcher and what it requires to kind of hang with him physically. So to me, it's going to be. I think he's one of the biggest kind of keys for Florida State on defense. Like if he doesn't bring it, and if he kind of plays that brand of just like I'm just gonna try to hit you hard, like that doesn't to me that might not work. But to me, Earl Little, Ashlyn Barker with what he does as far as rushing getting after the quarterback, I thought was impressive. Their cornerback seemed to have some size. Jabril Rawls, um, who's this guy on the other side? I don't remember who
Oh,
plays who.
Jerry Wilson.
Jerry Wilson, the Houston transfer, like both those. Jerry Wilson almost ended the Virginia game. Like he jumps past, like he tried to make a play, he doesn't make the play. It kind of goes for a big gain and all that stuff, but he took a risk, like he gambled there. But like he makes that play, like that probably ices things. And so he's a good, talented player coming from the group of five ranks where he was again positive, and Jabril Rawls has some size too. They got some backup guys like Quindarius Jones, who's another big guy. But to me, again, yeah, they kind of play a lot of like this sort of zone coverage, and I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't see that they're like super sticky cover corners that you
No.
can't really find separation on, especially if they're not generating a pass rush.
Yeah, to me, like Jerry Wilson has decent instincts, and you see the instincts to go make plays, but the finishing is, I don't know if it's there. If you were gonna, again, we keep this is the thing. Like FSU media keeps saying things like we don't know what Miami is because of who they've played.
Yeah.
But within that, it's like, okay, if we're comparing who Miami's played to
Oh,
FSU,
absolutely.
to me, like this corner group is the third best corner group
Yeah.
Miami's played. Would you push
Yeah.
back on that?
I would not push back on that. And
Or
I think,
secondary group,
yeah,
however,
oh,
yeah.
for sure, definitely the third best secondary. And I think that's funny because like they're saying how Miami hasn't really played anyone like Florida State has played
Right.
an Alabama team that played out of character and every like you watch credit to them for winning
Well,
that
here's
game.
the thing. They'll say Miami got luck,
Yeah, they
not
got
got lucky.
lucky.
They
Right.
caught Notre Dame at the right time
Right, exactly.
because
And oh, DJ Lagway had just thrown five. It's just like, okay, well, like what are we doing? What are we
no, no,
doing?
no. But like, okay. So yeah, CJ Carr in his first start, like all that's true. Yes, CJ Carr now looks to be really good, right? Okay. What about Ty Simpson in Alabama? Like, does that not apply to Florida State as well?
Right.
But anyways, you play who
Oh,
you play and you got to handle your opponent week to week.
exactly.
Um, but yeah, that's Florida State in a nutshell. Let's take a quick break and we will come back on the other side and discuss this game from a Miami standpoint. All right, we are back. Three things we want to see from Miami, Gabby. Um, I'll go first. And
Yeah.
look, I think this is kind of like this is the trendy talking point, and I think it's I don't know if I have anything else to piggyback off everyone's point when talking about this game, but really this game kind of does come down to styles make fights, and what I mean by that is like which offense is going to be able to control the flow of this game, what this game becomes. And because you have two offenses going into this game that are good at what they do.
Hmm.
FSU has one of the most explosive offenses in the country. They're averaging 8.1 yards per play, which is second in the country. They're averaging 7.5 plays per game that have gone for at least 20 yards against Alabama and Virginia. So they're two Power Four opponents that they've played this year. They've had 9 touchdown drives, and 8 of those drives went under 10 plays. They were under 10 play drives. Um, on those touchdown drives against Alabama, FSU averaged 10 and a half yards per play. On those touchdown drives against Virginia, FSU averaged 9 yards per play. So, from a Miami perspective, it's kind of like what type of explosive success does Florida State experience? Will the Seminoles score touchdowns on these explosives? That's Florida State needs this to be kind of more of a shootouty type of game, a chaotic type of game where they are hitting on big plays and have kind of Miami's defense on skates, right? Miami's offense is more of like a success rate type of offense, and they're one of the best in the country at doing that. They win more on like a down to down basis. Um, they are the eighth ranked team in the country in success rate. They control the game via time of possession. They have an average of 33 minutes, 38 seconds time of possession this season, which is 12th in the country. We saw against Florida, right? Miami controlled the ball in the fourth quarter for over 11 minutes. So Miami not only moves the ball well in this manner, they also keep the ball away from their opponents in this manner. And so if Miami's able to do that, how does that impact what Florida State wants to be on offense? And of course, like the defenses have a lot to say about how all this plays out too, which we can get into later. But one drive or one instance in the Virginia game that kind of, I think is telling about, if you're on the Miami side of this and you're looking at this game optimistically through Miami lenses, Virginia's 12 play, 74-yard drive that took 6:13 off the clock in the third quarter to me is pretty encouraging. Chandler Morris, Virginia's quarterback, hurt his hand on that play. It like hit a helmet of a teammate on a follow through, I think. A teammate, or I forget if it was a defender or
It looked
teammate.
like it was a teammate.
Yeah. And he couldn't throw on that drive. Like it was clear his hand got numb or something, or like, and they even said on the TV broadcast, like he had to take pain medication and everything was good. But on that drive, to finish out that drive, he couldn't throw. And it didn't really matter. They ran the ball 11 of those 12 plays right down Florida State's throat. Florida State got mashed on defense in that third quarter. And kind of like honestly in that drive, like Florida State looked really worn down. And for the rest of the game, like that's kind of when things flipped for Virginia, and Virginia became clearly the more physical team from that point on. I think early in the game, like Florida State was probably the more physical team. They had turnovers and penalties that really set them back, and that allowed Virginia to take a quick 14-0 lead. Virginia took that lead despite Florida State kind of setting the tone from a physicality standpoint. But as that game went on, Virginia became the more physical team and took it to Florida State. So I think it's an interesting talking point. Which offense is going to be able to be who they want to
Yeah.
be in this game,
Yeah, who like which offense is going to kind of be able to stay within their identity?
right?
Because these are like polarizing
Right,
identities. Like they're two different styles of game, and whoever is able to establish their pace,
right.
I think has a huge advantage. But everything you're saying kind of goes into one of the things I want to see, and I think just early on, I think we need to see, and I think we will, just because. As we're talking about this is just Miami's brand of football, especially on offense. It's just testing that the physicality of that FSU defense. Just again,
Yeah,
I think that they kind of got exposed, especially late in the game, and I think maybe it'll be more telling as what Miami typically does. Teams they did it to Florida, and they kind of did it to Notre Dame in some ways too in the second half. Miami wants to drag this out and wants to kind of like drag you out to deep
deep
water
waters.
and
Yeah,
just make you kind of drown in the physicality. But I think there's also a part of it is just kind of setting the tone and establishing the way that this game is going to go. And I think it's just like I think if Miami can kind of and Alabama did this, and to FSU's credit, they responded,
yeah,
just set the tone early and kind of show that this is like this is a different kind of beast that they're dealing with. So to me. I think it's going to be super important for Miami to kind of force FSU to be like, yeah, like you're going to have to show us that you're better than what you were, especially in the second half of that Virginia game, because there was a lot of, if I'm an FSU fan and I'm truthfully watching that second half,
It was
it
bad
was
tape.
extremely concerning because
Yeah.
Virginia was down linemen, just body type wise. Like you kind of watch, it's like the Virginia offensive line and the Miami offensive line are different stratospheres as far as just like mass, size, movement, ability. And again, Virginia was able to kind of take it to them. I think when Miami kind of gets the ball on offense, set in that tone and testing where that defense is, I mean, I think we're going to know pretty early on what this game's going to at least from an FSU defensive standpoint, because I think their offense is going to be challenging for 4 quarters for sure. But I think defensively, there's big questions that FSU needs to answer, and Miami, I think, is going to test them big time.
Virginia's offense is good, but if FSU's defense is dynamic like an FSU defense should be, that Virginia's offense is not scoring 35 points against
Mm-mm.
them in regulation.
And not the
So,
way it's the way they did it too is
right.
that's the part that's more concerning. It's that. I mean, 12 plays, 11 rushes, go and score out of the half. Like that was their first possession out of the half. I think FSU got the ball
Yeah.
first, but that was Virginia's first. And then like the next drive, they were super physical with them too. Like in the second half of that game, Virginia was the more physical team,
Also,
which
like
concerning.
just the flow of the game too. Like yes, Virginia went up 14-0. FSU responded and went up 21-14 and should have put Virginia away from that point. But FSU kind of did what bad or average teams do and let Virginia get back into it. And it just looked like teams that were at the same level, honestly. And
Yeah.
I don't know if like anyone real, like I know Virginia's ranked this week, but like it looked to me, it looked like two top 40 teams just playing.
Yeah.
So, all right. What about another talking point that you want to see from Miami this week?
Yeah, I think it is. I think there's something to just Miami traveling for the first time this season.
Yeah.
First 4 weeks of the season, you've been at home, comfortable. Has been there have been big environments, but they've all been in your backyard, and now you're going on the road up to Tallahassee, Doak Campbell. There's a ton of juice around this game. No college game day, because you can't beat Virginia on the road. But ACC Huddle and Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler on the call. Again, I think a lot of people are excited about this one. It's the 7:30 ABC game. It's a big environment, and look, I think that there's something to having to play through that as far as just communication, being on the same
Yeah.
page, and kind of handling that. So I think just how does the 2025 Miami Hurricanes handle, going on the road and playing some of the in an environment like this in a big rivalry game where again, this game's gonna. I'm sure it's going to have its swings and it's all that stuff, and the crowd's going to be engaged and energized, and so I think it's something that matters
Yeah.
within the context of this game.
I agree. It will impact the game. I'm curious, like, what do you think? Like, do you think this team is built for it? Like, do you
Yeah,
like because you look on paper, Miami's an older team on offense. Like, and that's the side of the ball where you worry about going on the road. It's the offense, of course.
yeah.
Carson Beck has played a ton of games in this type of environment. The offensive line is all juniors and seniors and redshirt seniors, and they all have 1,000+ snaps. Even like the receivers, right? Communication out to the receivers might get dicey, but CJ Daniels and Keelan Marion have played, I don't know, over 1,500 career snaps
Hmm.
each. The two guys that are kind of inexperienced are Malachi Tony, the true freshman slot receiver, and I don't know. I guess you would put Elijah Lofton in this category,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. I mean, Josh Moore too, if he plays.
Yeah, I'm talking starters, but
Yeah,
yeah. Um, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly something that matters going into this game. I guess I would just be surprised if Miami doesn't handle it okay.
yeah, for sure. I'm with you. I'm not saying that they can't handle it.
No,
I'm
no,
just
it
curious to see
matters.
how they handle it because this is just a different routine. It's a different rhythm,
Yeah,
and it's your biggest rival stadium, and
right.
so I think that's just a factor that that does come into account in some way, shape, or form. Carson Beck's
It
played in
does
every
matter.
SEC, has played in basically SEC, every SEC road venue that there is, and those are all big time environments. And he's played in front of hundreds of thousands of people. I'm not worried about Carson Beck and all these guys. I just think there's something to just having to get up and travel after you've kind of just had your steady, regular routine of
Yeah,
going to the team hotel, playing at Hard Rock, all that fun
right.
stuff. So this is just something new and different that I think you got to kind of consider
Yeah, and that crowd will provide juice to Florida
for
State
sure.
sideline.
Yeah.
So, you gotta meet that intensity in some ways. One thing I want to see, Gabby, and this isn't like a huge thing to go into talking point wise, but I do think it matters. Like one thing I think that's not being talked enough about going into this game is how Miami's coming off a bye. And that means, look, Florida State, and they did this on purpose, right? Hiring Gus Malzahn and Tony White as their coordinators, guys that run, you know, I don't think I'm throwing shade by saying like they run kind of unconventional schemes on their respective sides of the ball. You got 2 weeks to prepare for this, and particularly where I think the side of the ball that it needs to show up, that preparation, that time is Miami's defense. Corey Heatherman, uh, the job he's done preparing for Florida State this game, that offense, it needs to show up in this game. Whatever the game plan is for dealing with Castellanos, it needs to show up.
Yeah.
Miami
Oh,
Miami
God.
needs to be ready for like the misdirection,
Yeah.
and the eye candy that, the jet sweeps, the horizontal stuff. FSU, they're gonna hit on some explosives. Like it's going to happen, but it just can't be consistent and it can't kill you. And again, I don't know what this means, but like this needs to be like a Corey Heatherman game where his preparation and work shows up and impacts and makes Florida State's offense uncomfortable.
I'm with you. And again, that kind of bleeds into what I was just going to bring up last, just like how, just this defense and how they choose to kind of attack. Like I'm curious just what the approach is going to be, just even just about
What would you
containing.
do with Castellanos?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I would try to, because I'm trying to think like, oh, like, get after him. And it's just like, I don't even know if I care to like,
I
I think it's more about just like kind of encasing him in like and kind of making him become a passer, kind of keeping the linebackers kind of up in front of him and trying to getting those edge rushers to just set the edge and kind of just like, make him uncomfortable and make him have to kind of do
Yeah,
some Houdini type
squeeze
of
the
stuff.
pocket.
Exactly, just
Yeah.
squeeze the pocket like that. Like that would be my approach and just like it's not even I don't even want to like get off the edge and kind of, again, if you can do
Right.
that, great. But to me, it's more just about making him feel really tight, spaced, and just kind of having that enclosed
To
on him.
me, like there's two types of pressure this week in this matchup, right? The type of traditional pressure you think of with defensive line pressure where it's like, all right, we're in his face, we're affecting the quarterback. Eh, The other type of pressure when you face a guy like a Thomas Castellanos that is an up and down passer is the pressure to complete passes into coverage. To me, that's the type of pressure you want to see this week
Yeah.
with Thomas Castellanos. But the answer really is just a mix of both.
Yeah.
You gotta throw fastballs, you gotta throw changeups. So,
Yeah.
but I agree. I mean, and also too, like you gotta read your keys, right? Like Gus Malzahn, no doubt, is gonna show some stuff that he hasn't shown in a while with like getting to the edges, and that's a huge key too. Like you gotta you gotta contain those edge runs, quick passes, etc. Um, because he can get things rolling on you quickly with those plays. Once Gus Malzahn's in his bag, it can get tough on a defense to get their head above water and get some air. But Corey Heatherman's had 2 weeks. To me, this needs to be a Corey Heatherman game.
Yep. I'm with you.
My last point, make FSU tackle. So this to me, this goes in a lot of different ways. To me, number one, I don't think FSU honestly is like particularly a good tackling team at all. So of course, the number one thing is run the ball downhill at them, which we know Miami's going to do. They're going to run their duo and they're going to come right at FSU and say, "Can you stop us this way?" Can they? I don't know. We'll see. If they can, I think there's other ways you can test Florida State tackling. I don't think they're very good tackling corners, and I think their safeties are inconsistent tacklers. Um, I think in the quick game to the perimeter, you can get the ball to Keelan Marion, who's a strong runner with the ball in his hands. He's a good kick returner, which is an indication that he can run through contact. I would bet if you give him some of those looks and he's got some space, he breaks some tackles. I think honestly, like Elijah Lofton in space could be a problem
Hmm.
for this FSU group to tackle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just
Uh,
coverage. I think those linebackers too would have a hard time
yes.
covering Elijah Lofton in this game.
And then we've seen too, Gabby, like, and in some ways, like it is like Miami runs most of their runs just kind of right into the interior of the line of scrimmage. You could argue like their quote unquote edge rushes or perimeter rushes are really those check downs or swing routes from Carson Beck to the running backs. And that's where like Marty Brown has been a silent killer
Yeah.
in this way. I looked the numbers up and he's caught 8 of 8 targets on passes shorter than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage for 75 yards. He's converted 5 first downs in those situations. Mark Fletcher has caught 4 of 5 of those type of targets for 45 yards. So between those two, that's 12 of 13 targets caught for 120 yards and picking up 7 first downs. And again, like to me, man, like the back sevens of Notre Dame and Florida, much more talented, much faster, much better tacklers.
Hmm.
I think they're much better tacklers than this Florida State defense. And so like those are chain movers that I think again over the course of a game, body blows like I think those are the ways you make FSU tackle. Um, so that's kind of what I see.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, it's. I think this is the benefit to, again, somehow the conversation being that Miami hasn't played anyone, but these are the benefits of having played like just good
They're battle
defenses. Like,
tested. I mean,
yes,
they
like
are.
this is the again a lot of like what about the defenses that Miami's played against? Like this Notre Dame defense, sure. Is there some turnover year over year? Yes, but there's still a ton of talent on these defenses, and there's still both those defenses, both the defense that Miami's beaten, Florida and Notre Dame's are better than, again, in a lot of ways, maybe a ton of ways, than this FSU defense that Miami's about to play. So I don't know. I think that it's encouraging that this Miami offense has already kind of ran into some tough defenses and they've answered those, they've performed well in those situations. So I think what they have coming up for them against FSU is, again, I think that they are prepared for all of this stuff. And again, I think they're just going to make it really difficult on these guys because I think they are, again, they've played these physical games before. This isn't like just their first like big game that they're playing, despite for some reason people think Miami has played anyone. So I guess that's where we're at.
How about a matchup you like the most from a Miami perspective going into this game?
Yeah, I think it's kind of along the lines of what we're talking about. Just Miami's run game against FSU's front seven. Like I think that what Miami can do running the ball in this game, I think the formula is just kind of in place. It's just like force that defense to be physical. I think I think that you can establish the run game. I think that's what Miami wants to do. They want to be super physical running the football with a lot of that duo. I think they're going to kind of push it. I think they're going to put a lot of stress on that FSU front seven. I think when they kind of start to run the ball well, and they're going to run the ball, I think that kind of opens up the passing game in a lot of ways. I think this is one of those games that you can kind of start running it. You run the ball to kind of start opening up the passing game. I think they're going to be able to run the ball well. I think they're going to be the more physical team at the line of scrimmage, and I think that that's a huge advantage that Miami has in this game specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Take the low-hanging fruit. Miami's offensive line against their front seven. To me, again, like this is closer to facing, like they're better than USF, but this is closer to facing the USF front seven compared to the Florida or Notre Dame front seven. I think it's a massive mismatch for Miami. Virginia had some backups winning at the
Yeah.
point of attack against this FSU front. I think, you know, I think FSU fans and media kind of overrate the Florida State front seven a little bit because of what happened in the season opener against Alabama. And look, they get credit for that. They certainly took the fight to Alabama in that game. To me, though, like I think Alabama's offensive line is pretty average. And I just think there's levels to this. And This Alabama offensive line is not close to anything that this Miami offensive line
Yeah.
is.
And I think it's just the logo, it's the logos that are creating a fog because I think
Yeah,
you just see Alabama and it's just like this Miami offensive line is on a different level, I think,
yeah.
than like Alabama offensive line is very flawed.
Matchup to keep an eye on from like a concern standpoint with Miami going into this game.
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of just like the horizontal eye candy type of stuff. A lot of eye discipline is required. I think when you're playing this type of offense, I think it's different than a lot of what Miami's seen. Obviously they've seen some sort of, mobility from quarterbacks with the Byron Brown thing and similar, where it's a lot of just like kind of rushing and different side to side
Yeah,
stuff with the
but this comes
desire.
in waves.
Right,
Like
with the
it's
desire to throw that to get like the ball to push the ball downfield. But yeah, I think the Florida State, I think they present a unique challenge to Miami and what they can do with that and just the speed that they have with the Makai Danzis and again the gadgety kind of natures of the Jalen Lucases. And again, with a big, true, like, outside receiver that's 6'6", 230 and Deuce Robinson.
how do you feel
Um,
about that? How does Miami match up against Deuce? Because we haven't to this point really talked about that
yeah.
much.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, different types of, again, different teams, different players. But against Alabama, he has what, two catches for 18 yards. I think those Alabama cornerbacks are obviously big and long. The Deshaun Johnson who's 6'4", all that stuff. I think Miami does have, and especially when comparing Virginia, which is like who he just kind of went off against. Like I think Miami has way better corners, way more physical corners, corners that can run. I think Xavier Lucas, to me, if we're drawing this up, a 6'2",
Yeah.
200-pounder who's also like a 10'4", 100-meter kid, I think is a great matchup. You got another, again, OJ Frederique is a big physical corner too, who has mass, who I think could make Damari Brown is another physical cornerback that has mass. I mean, some of the damage that Deuce Robinson had against Virginia was against a cornerback that Miami brought in and then kind of just pushed right back out in Emmanuel Carnley, who struggled against Deuce Robinson, in the times that he was covering him. So I think Miami's cornerback play has improved. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think that there are
Yeah.
answers for Miami in the secondary at corner because you have the size and you have the size, the length, the speed, and the mass to. Again, you don't have a 6'6" corner. No one's going to match up with him perfectly, but I think you have guys out there that can make it more difficult for Deuce Robinson than it's been in the weeks that he's had like truly explosive games. I think against the middle of the pack ACC teams, Deuce Robinson's going to feast because if you don't have an answer
Yeah.
for him, he's a really, really tough guy. He's an excellent contested catch
And
receiver.
they'll constantly feed
Yes,
him.
and you can force feed him in those games. I
Yeah,
don't think that this is a game where you are going to be able to force feed Deuce Robinson
I agree.
because of the way Miami matches up on the outside. So he's a good player and he's going to make his plays, right? Like, especially those red zones, you start getting into red zone situation, the field starts condensing. I just don't know if he's going to be like that true explosive element unless, again, it's one of those back shoulder plays. He makes a 25, 30-yard catch. Like I could see that, but I don't see him being a 130-yard receiver with two touchdowns or whatever. He should have had 10 for like 160 against Virginia, but he drops it. So I mean, he had like takeover ability in that game. Didn't have it here. I don't know if he's going to have that same ability here against Miami.
Yeah, and look, Deuce is their best receiver by far. When I say this, I'm not like he's a great player, but in terms of like matchup for Miami and their secondary, I'm like a little more concerned about their speed guys, like a Squirrel White and his downfield speed. Um, Even like a Makai Danzy. Both those guys are flawed, and they're not half the player that Deuce Robinson is in general. But like their speed, I think could give Miami secondary more issues than what Deuce would give to Miami
Right.
secondary. And like for me, just in general, like going on, building on your point, like specifically the area I'm concerned about is kind of their safeties, not only with that speed element, the downfield speed element, but the horizontal game and taking the correct angles from the safety positions is going to be critical in this game. And then of course, in addition to that, tackling in space is going to be
Hmm.
critical in this game. Because again, those end arounds, those reverses, those jet sweeps, they're coming.
Yeah.
And if you take a bad angle on it Florida State's guys are really fast and they're going to hit you for 30
Yeah.
plus yards.
Yeah, and I think too, like they can get. I think it's interesting. Like they can get Jalen Lucas matched up with like a linebacker, and it's like, how
Yes,
does Wesley Bissaint handle having to cover Jalen Lucas one on one in space? Like that's or Motore or someone of
these are
that nature. Like
problems.
that, like
Yeah.
they can create those matchups that don't favor you, and
Yep.
it is problematic when you're in those kind of binds because that's tough. That's a big ask for a linebacker to be one on one with a small shifty player like that. But those are the types of situations that I think this Gus Malzahn offense puts you in.
Yes. How about a player that needs to step up?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I think a few guys come to mind, but one in particular, I'm gonna go Mo Torre, just being kind of like the Mike
I like that.
linebacker. I think he's someone that, I think 5 games into things now, I think there's a gear that he can kind of kick into, or I think we hope maybe he can kind of kick into. I think this is a big game just because of kind of like the nature of just the horizontal movements, and he's someone that's a good athlete. I think he can move. I think he kind of struggles in coverage a little bit, but I think he's someone that if he kind of steps up and has a good game, it can go a long way towards Miami kind of solving this equation that is Gus Malzahn and its offense.
Let me ask you this. If you were going to pick a player, and it could be a guy who is more of a rotational player, anyone on the defense, if you're picking a player to spy Tommy Castellanos whenever you want to have a spy for Tommy Castellanos,
Ooh,
who would you pick? Would you go I think would you go Motori or would you because I think Motori from like a delay yes, speed for speed, acceleration for acceleration. Tommy's gonna have the edge there over
right.
Motori. But Mo is a veteran player and he knows angles, etc. Who would you want in that role if Miami even wants to do that?
Yeah, I don't know. Jacoby Thomas, maybe. I
Yeah.
don't know.
What about Jacoby? I mean, and then
Yeah,
you'd
I think
put
Jacoby
Bryce.
Thomas kind of kicked Bryce back. Yeah, I mean, I would just be concerned about Bryce in a game like this. I don't know.
Well,
Just because I think it's
what
a
if
lot
it's
of.
third and 11?
Right, in those situations, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, like, down to down, I don't want
Uh,
Bryce Fitzgerald on the field.
right.
Like, very much. I mean, again, I'm
Because
cool
of
with the sub.
tackling is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
because
Yeah.
of the tackling stuff, and I think angles are still something he needs to figure out as far as like just within the run game, outside of just even the tackling. Um, but yeah, if it's an obvious passing situation where it's just like you need someone to kind of contain Tommy Castellanos, yeah, I guess I would go Jacoby Thomas, and sure, you can throw Bryce back there, but I don't want Bryce Fitzgerald on the field a ton.
Yeah.
Again, just on a down-to-down basis in this game.
Yeah. I was thinking too, what about like Keontae Scott?
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then maybe you bring Damari in as like the nickel. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe that's getting too creative.
yeah, that's a lot of
Um,
DBs on the field.
yeah,
Because
but I'm thinking like third and 11. I'm thinking
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
passing situations
yeah.
where you would spy
I think
Tommy
Damari's
Castellanos.
even like just going back to Deuce. I think Damari's even like a potential like tough matchup for Deuce Robinson too.
Yeah.
Like I think
Um,
Miami has answers there. But yeah, I think that's an interesting point. What about you? Do you got a player that needs to kind of step up?
So I am gonna say Keontae Scott just in general because I think
Hmm.
that against this defense, that nickel position is constantly in conflict,
Hmm.
and you need that guy to play fast. You need to get that guy to play with instincts, and you need that guy to be a good tackler in space and good in coverage. And to this point,
Yeah,
Keontae
he's been great.
Scott has been excellent in all those phases. He's been one of the best players on the defense. Like, of course, Ruben Bain is the best player,
Right.
but like Keontae Scott quietly has been very
Yeah.
important, and
Down
he's
to down to down, Keontae Scott's been one of the best players on the defense for sure.
he's going to be big in this game. He's
Yeah.
got to he's got to play a good game this week. How
Yeah.
about player of the game?
I'm kind of sticking to my guns. I'm gonna go Mark Fletcher. I think that just I really just love the advantage that Miami has in this game.
Yeah,
Virginia. Not saying Miami's going to run for 250 like how Virginia did. Again, I expect more resistance from FSU, but again, I think if you don't got it physically, you don't got it. Like I feel like that's hard to you can't like week to week you can't fix some of the problems that I feel like Florida State has in that front seven
yeah,
as far as just the instincts of the linebackers, just just the
The
ability of
physicality.
the physicality of the defensive line. That front seven to me, I think you can fix the tackling on the back end, which could lead to maybe less explosive runs. Sure, but I think Mark Fletcher is a problem for this FSU defense. Like, I don't think this is the type of back that bodes well for what we saw from them a week ago. And again, I think it just comes down to FSU having to prove that they're willing to kind of play this game. And
Right.
I think Mark Fletcher could be a big beneficiary from that.
So I like the Mark Fletcher pick. I'm going to go Marty Brown,
Yeah.
mainly because like of the way I think the game is going to go and the way that they've used Marty Brown this year. Like I think this is a game where Miami drops the hammer with like 20 minutes to go in the game, late third quarter. And to this point, like that's kind of been Marty Brown time. Like in the fourth quarter, Marty Brown's the guy they put in the game, and he runs angry. And I think he's going to play a big role in Miami controlling this game and getting them the victory there late in the game. All right, lines and odds, betting lines, betting odds going into this game. Right now, last I looked on FanDuel, Miami's a 4.5 point favorite. I think that might go down to four, might, whatever, but we'll go with 4.5. Over under 54.5 is what I see. And so it's time to make our predictions relative to all of that. Gabby, the floor is yours.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think Miami's just way more physical team in this game. I have Miami winning. I got them covering the 4.5 points. I'm gonna go score 31-21. Again, I think that this is just a team that I think people are underestimating just how different Miami is from a line of scrimmage standpoint and the kind of challenges that they kind of pose.
Yeah.
I know FSU beat that Alabama team, and again, ton of credit to them for doing that.
Hmm.
But I think Miami's a different beast as far as just what Alabama showed in that specific game. I'm not talking about right now. Like Alabama's obviously cleaned up some of their issues, and Florida State's obviously able to fix those issues as well. But to me, you kind of got to prove it because the brand of football that they played against Virginia looked very run of
Bad.
the mill, yeah, average AC, average team to me. It didn't look anything special. Offense is extremely challenging. I think that side of the ball, they can present a ton of different things. But to me, what they do on defense is going to make it really, really difficult for them to stick with Miami for 4 quarters. I think Miami again wins this game. I got it as a 10-point win. The fact that it's on the road and it's a rivalry game is probably the only thing that's keeping me from going a little bit bigger on this one. But I
Yeah.
think Miami still gets a solid road win up in Tallahassee.
Yeah, I'm in that similar range. I'm Miami 31, FSU 23. Um, and yeah, the road game element is an element. That's why this game's probably tighter than it would be on a neutral field to me. But I just think, look, Miami just doesn't really have flaws. Florida State kind of does have significant flaws that I think will show up in this game. And look, these football games are long, and I think over a 4 quarter game, typically the team with the much better line of scrimmage performance controls the game and wins. I wouldn't be surprised, Gabby, if Florida State comes out fast, kind of sets the tone for this game. But then as things kind of settle in and we get to the third and fourth quarters, it's kind of clear that Miami is able to control the game um, and pull out the win. So let me ask you this too, Gabby. Like, let's say this game does become a shootout, right? Which team do you think? I don't even know if shootout's the right way, but to me, like if we're even just talking like who's more likely to score 30 points against the other team's defense,
Yeah.
I think Miami's still the team more likely to score 30 points against this FSU defense than FSU's offense is to score 30 points against this Miami defense.
Yeah, for sure. I think flow of the game, matters and just what it looks like and all that stuff. Like I do think this FSU defense is good enough to score 30 points. I don't know if they're going to do that against again this Miami defense specifically. And yeah, I think Miami's offense can certainly score 30 points on this FSU defense. I think they probably will. Again, and again, I think Carson Beck and the amount of time that he's going to have to pass. We haven't, I feel like we never really even talked about Miami's passing game
That's
in
the
this.
thing.
Like,
Like, I
it's
don't
just
think it's
like,
going to be an issue. Passing the
yeah, I mean,
ball,
because
I
again, they
don't.
can't rush the
But
pass, like they can't rush the
yeah,
passer. And, they have to kind of fabricate a pass rush by sending more numbers to it. And if you do that, and sometimes when they dedicate more numbers to it, they still don't really get home. Like there were times where they sent six against Virginia. Chandler Morris sat in the pocket, a huge hole opens up, and he just basically walks in for a touchdown. Like they can send numbers to it and still not get there. Like I
Right.
think, and if you start doing that to Carson Beck, I do think Carson Beck has, and again, this with the secondary talent that Florida State has compared to what he's already seen. Again, I don't think it's on that level of either one of those two defenses. So, um, I think Carson Beck has some like pick you apart potential in this too. Like,
Yeah.
he
But
doesn't
they
have
don't
to
need to
throw
do that.
right. He
That's the
doesn't
thing.
need. He may not throw for 300 yards in this game, but I think he's going to be efficient. I
Yeah.
think he's going to
To
take.
me, there's a lot of overanalyzing about the passing performance against
Oh,
Florida.
he's hurt. You haven't heard that Carson
Yeah.
Beck's hurt?
Zipgate.
This is
But like Miami didn't need to pass the ball in that game. Like
no.
they pounded Florida, who is a better defense. And I don't know. I think it's going to be similar style of game on Saturday night, but we'll see, right? Florida State is a good team, and it will be a competitive game.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
um, appreciate everyone for listening. Again, check out InsideTheU.com. Gabby and I will both be up there. We're excited to be in the house for this game. And again, thank you to our sponsors. Appreciate everyone listening. And until next time, take care.